Welcome back to the Green Line Gazette podcast. Remember, we're on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and Substack. Also, give us a follow on Instagram. We're doing a lot of graphics for the World Cup. Getting right into it today for episode 18. It is now. U.S. takes on Australia, the Socceroos, at 3 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow on Friday. So 12 o'clock on the Western Coast at Seattle Stadium. Should be a really good test. We're going to get into, we'll do an intro of Australia's lineup, obviously go over what's happening with the U.S. squad, and then we'll do some around the horn stuff just with the rest of the World Cup because it has been quite interesting. A lot of surprising draws taking place. I'm sure you can point out the glaringly obvious ones, no doubt about that. But getting right into Australia. So, right, coming off a huge statement win. I don't think many people thought Australia was going to beat Turkey, draw them. I thought they were going to get smoked personally. A lot of people had Turkey as their dark horse of the World Cup. Everyone said, Turkey was going to top the group and Australia go right into BC Place in Vancouver and put them down 2-0. A very interesting game, I will say. Possession, Turkey had 72%, while Australia had 28%. So they thrived off of the counterattack. Turkey shot 30 times, 1.33 XG. And Australia's goalkeeper just had the game of his life. I think 8 saves it was on those 30 shots. All 8 on goal obviously were saved. Australia played a really, really tough back line, often 5 in the back. Forcing really Turkey to play in the wide space. Turkey had 22 crosses, but I mean, we'll get into it. Australia's back 3 are massive, so those crosses were basically no threat at all for Australia. Started in the 27th minute, their main man, Nestori Irankunda, with the opening goal. He's only 20, right? This dude's going to be a star, I think. Of course, it was on the counterattack. That's how Australia's clearly going to play if they're going to play anything like the Turkey game, which worked quite well. You're going to have to be really careful for that counterattack in giving the ball away in valuable spaces like the attacking third and the midfield as well, of course. But Irankunda made him pay. 75th minute. Again, Connor Metcalf, another transition goal from way downtown, just put the game away. I mean, had to be incredibly demoralizing for Turkey, basically holding on to the ball for 3/4 of the game and getting absolutely nothing out of it, and then getting, just house cleaned by Australia, putting 2 behind you. It was a little fiery at the end. Okun received a yellow card late in the half as Turkey was getting just way too frustrated. At that point, Australia was playing a 5-4-1. So you can understand why with that low block, especially for a team like Turkey, who is really a fast-paced and electric team. When you put 10 men behind the ball for a majority of the game and are somehow trailing by 2 goals, you're gonna lose your head. Like I think I would too. It's absolutely insane. But masterclass by Tony Popovic, the Australian manager for the Socceroos. You can say what you want about the low block, 10 men behind the ball, 28% possession, whatever it is, facing 30 shots. People say it might not be the most sustainable, way to play the game. Perhaps they got a little lucky against Turkey, and hopefully, I think I agree. I think hopefully the U.S. can make them pay if they're really going to sit with 10 behind the ball. If the U.S. can just get 1 out there early, I think it's going to force Australia to come out of that 5-4-1, and they look very unnatural outside of that. So that'll be definitely the key. But getting into their starting 11, all right, for those who don't know, Australia had a pretty good run in the qualifying. We last beat them in a friendly. This is our first ever time facing off in an official World Cup match, but we ended their 12-game unbeaten run the last time we faced them 2-1. It was a double from Haji Wright, actually, funny enough. But now in goal for the Socceroos, we have Patrick Beach, his third ever cap for Australia was that Turkey game over their veteran keeper Ryan. He was, he played out of his mind, right? 8 crucial saves, a crazy stop on a Adra Guler free kick to keep that clean sheet for the Socceroos. He's playing for Melbourne City right now. He was just out of his mind. You can probably expect with that built confidence and now his 4th ever international appearance for the Socceroos, he's going to have all the confidence he needs. So it's not going to be easy to break him down. You're going to have to really take the open spaces and the open shots. I don't think testing him is really gonna do anything because I think he's going to be all over that. So I think the U.S. are going to have to play a lot more tactical and technical to break down the Australian defense, because I think anything from outside of the box, I mean, unless it's absolutely slotted like that Anthony Robinson volley against Germany, I don't see Beach letting too much in, to be quite honest. He's also really good taking down crosses. I mean, you already have Australia's massive 3 center backs who are just like, you can go look up pictures of Sutar and Burgess, also Sirikati. They're huge. But even though Beach will still just hawk down those crosses. So you're going to have to beat them low. You're going to have to beat them in the open space. I think, the U.S. can do that. I think we showed we could do that against Paraguay. But we cannot rely on any of those deep balls. I mean, getting into these massive defenders, right? Alessandro Siricati plays for Parma. Had an amazing season in Serie A. He's only 22. Great composure on the ball. He's probably going to be one of Australia's starting center backs for, quite some time. He played really well against Turkey, really snuffed out their attack. Aerial duels, I think he won almost every one he was involved in. He had a very, very good game. Right next to him, you got Harry Sutar from Leicester City. Of course, again, relegated, unfortunately, but he was their captain in the last match. Obviously, will continue to wear that band. Also a huge aerial threat. Just he thwarts everything. He's really their focal point in that back line. He gets them organized. He's a veteran leader. He knows what he's doing. He's been here before. And that was probably why they were so successful, was because they had this veteran. He's kind of like their version of Tim Ream, but I'd maybe say a little bit better than Tim Ream, in my personal opinion. And then on his right flank, you have Cameron Burgess of Swansea City. He mostly plays on that left center back side. He's a really physical center back. Very strong one-on-one. He does get lost a lot when he's supposed to be marking someone, and if they're not going to dribble him straight on. So off-ball IQ and awareness for him is pretty low, and I think that's something the U.S. are obviously going to exploit, especially with like McKinney, right? We talked about those late runs he did all against Paraguay the entire time. I think you got to target Burgess, right? Really athletically gifted, really physical guy, but he lacks just that awareness off the ball, and I think, Turkey kind of figured that out towards the end of their game. Of course, thanks to Beach, nothing came of it, but I think the U.S. are going to be all over that, and I'm sure Australia's going to have something in place, because I guarantee they saw how weak he was too. Going into their midfielders and wing backs, right? So they're playing a pretty similar back line structure to what the U.S. were playing, with that 5 in the back. It's just 2 wing backs and then those 3 CBs. You have Jacob Italiano from Grazer AK. He's their right wing back. He had a very good, very high energy performance. Tracks back defensively very well and can drive forward in transition. He was subbed, I think, in like the 75th minute, so he might have some fitness or stamina problems at times. But when he's on the pitch, he was actually pretty impressive. I was pretty impressed by him. Right to and then into the central midfield, Aidan O'Neill from NYCFC. He's like their anchor, basically. He's kind of like their Tyler Adams equivalent, provides excellent tactical coverage, really stuffed out all Turkish counterattacks. He was like their engine of that entire low block. I think O'Neill and Sutar are very, very smart players, and I think that's why Australia excelled with that 5-4-1 low block against a team like Turkey, because they were so coordinated. And when a team is coordinated like this and when they know what kind of style of football they want to play, it's going to be really hard to break down. And Aiden O'Neal just made it that much harder for them. Also in the midfield with him, you got Paul Okan Estilger from Sydney FC. 7th senior appearance, right? A lot of young guys with not a lot of caps. He's only 20 years old. He assisted that Irankunda opening goal, just put it right over the top. It was a beautiful, like, pinpoint through ball. Very, very impressive. Again, this dude is only 20. I think the Socceroos have a very, very bright future ahead of them. However, they still are young, and young guys like Paul here do make mistakes quite often, and he wasn't without his mistakes against Turkey. And I think, again, if I notice that, I guarantee Poch and the rest of his staff are going to notice that too, and that he's going to be someone they're going to go after in that midfield as a weak point. Along with Jordan Boss from Feyenoord. He's at that left wing back. Not as good, I would say, as Italiano. Makes all right overlapping runs to help kind of move that Turkish defense in and out, but I wasn't super impressed by him. I mean, again, it was really one game, to be honest, but I think that's someone you can also go after on that left wing. Especially maybe we'll talk about Pulisic later, but Balogun, getting him out of position, see what you can do with Boss. He's all right, right? That's kind of all there is to it. He's serviceable. He's out there. It's not like there's a glaring gap, to be quite honest. Moving on to the forwards, though, right? Goal scorer, 74th minute, Connor Metcalf from St. Pauli. He kind of plays like an advanced midfield role. Not quite box to box, excuse me, but definitely higher up the field. That goal he had was class. He's a pretty good workhorse. He's, again, flanked by Irankunda from Watford, who had that 20-year-old we were just talking about earlier with that first goal, who was absolutely electric. He did the Tim Cahill corner flag punch for Selly, which was awesome, right? Great tribute to him. But him and Metcalf look pretty dangerous, and I think, you have to take him seriously, to be honest, right? And then you have Mohamed Toure from Rangers up front, using that physicality. He really was proving to be a problem for those Turkish center backs, doing really good hold-up play, making way for TT Yengi, who came in for him in the second half. But Torre's kind of like a Gyökeres, who I would not as good, of course, not that Gyökeres is good by any means, in my opinion, but he's just really a physical body. He's not going to do anything to wow you, but he's going to slow down the game, allow your players to catch up. And he did a really good job of that against Turkey. So, right, like, if that's what you're put out there to do, good for you, right? That's what you got to do. He helped, right? Since they're playing that 5-4-1, it was fluid, right? Goes from 5-4-1 to kind of like a 3-4-2-1 or a 3-4-3 at times. And Torre was really essential in allowing those wingbacks to get up the field while holding the ball in critical areas. So for what he was supposed to do, I would say it's a pretty impressive performance, in my opinion, to be quite honest. We can obviously expect exactly that for the U.S. game. They're going to be coming in with this low block wall, right? That back five. It's going to be tough. They saw what we did to Paraguay. They're going to hunker down even more. This, I think, in my opinion, this is going to be a low-scoring game, probably under 2.5 goals, maybe even 1.5. It might be a 1-goal type of game, depending on, how it unfolds, right? If we get that early one, it's going to force Australia to come out of this low block and be a little more offensive, which will expose them in the back. They're quite weak when they're not playing this low block. So I think if we can grab that early one and make them be uncomfortable in a formation they don't want to play, I think we're going to excel really, really well. You can expect Sirkati and Burgess to be flanking Sutar, compressing that space between the lines so that, like, if Reyna or Tillman or Pulisic can play, whoever it may be, they can't drift in those central pocket spaces. So you'll watch it, or you can go watch that Turkey game. Sirkati and Burgess will kind of push up and leave Sutar behind them so they can occupy these areas. And then anything in behind them, Sutar, because his strides are so long, this dude's so massive, he was able to clean up quite honestly, and very easy, to be frank. Italiano and Boss on the left and right will be tracking back aggressively. They did that all Turkey game, right? Shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. They're going to really force themselves to get into that back five as quick as they can. So you're going to see exactly that, I would have to guess, from Australia, because like I said, it went so well for them. Central midfield, you're probably going to see like a mid to low defensive block with O'Neal and then Ocon, Engstler, excuse me. They'll probably play like a double pivot in that central midfielder. They're basically just there to disrupt like transition and basically buy time for that back line. They're going to be looking for long balls, direct, diagonal, whatever it may be, right over the top once possession's turned over. So it's so important that the U.S. can hang on to the ball in that midfield, because the second we lose it, they're going to look for one of us sleeping, or they're going to see that, Jedi isn't tracking back fast enough, or he's too far up the pitch, and they're going to play those direct balls in, or they're going to see Tim Reams out of position. They know he won't have the pace to track, whoever it may be, and they're going to play that ball. And O'Neal and Englister do such a great job with that. They did that against Turkey, just absolutely put them in a blender. As for Metcalf, he'll probably drop deep into that defensive structure when they don't have the ball too, right? This is a 5-4-1. He'll move up and down the field, but he'll really just be probably sitting behind the ball at all times. I don't think you'll ever find him above the ball because of how compact this formation is going to be. But we really got to watch. I've been saying it all night, right? You got to watch for that counterattack. It is so fast. It's so effective. Torre will be that focal point, right? He's going to, against Turkey, would check into the midfield, right? Hold that ball, right? You want to get those U.S. center backs on their heels, create space for your runners, play one back and play it over. That's what they did against Turkey. Iran Kunda, he's more of their tactical guy. He's probably going to sit in those wing back positions where Dest and Robinson are going to be tracking back if he can catch them out of position. This dude is so fast, especially with the ball in transition, that if they catch our wing backs out of position, it's going to be bad. I wouldn't be too shocked if Poch has Dest and Robinson be a little more reserved at times because of how bad it could get if they get caught too far up the pitch. So don't be shocked if it seems like we're playing a little conservative in the wide spaces. It's just because Torre and Iran Kunda were so dangerous against Turkey doing exactly that. US, right? What you got to do if you want to win, you got to move the ball fast, right? You're basically playing like a 9-back line against, that's what Australia's going to be having in that 5-4-1. You're probably going to have 9 to 10 players behind the ball. You need to move it fast. If you try and take it slow and take one-on-ones, they're just going to collapse on you and force ugly turnovers, or you're just going to have to spit it back out to Ream or, whoever it may be right in the back line. If you can circulate that ball and stretch the back five, I think it's going to work really well, right? You don't want to play into Australia's hands. You want to get Boss and Italiano out of position, because when they're out of position, they look like they're chickens with their heads cut off. They have no idea what to do. So if you can get them out of position, you can get them moving, and you can make them uncomfortable by playing fast, by playing 1 to 2 touches max on the ball in the midfield. And when moving forward, I think Australia is going to struggle. You got to prevent that long ball outlet, right? We just talked about it. They're going to be looking over the top of your heads. You got to make sure you're covering that space behind you. Make sure you're aware of where players are, where Ian Kunda is on the pitch, because he will make you pay. Anthony Robinson, especially him, it's going to be a great matchup with him and Iran Kunda. Iran Kunda, like we said, is so explosive. So Anthony Robinson has to just balance those overlaps that he runs all the time. He's got to pick and choose his battles when he wants to do them, because if not, he's leaving that vacuum of space behind him that Iran Kunda is gonna, take advantage of, and he's going to push right into our center backs who don't do great one-on-one all the time. So if you're Anthony Robinson, right, obviously you want to be going up and making those forward runs because you're so good at them. but you got to be diligent when you're doing them, because if you're being reckless and sloppy, you know, they're going to make you pay. I don't know how many times I have to say it. I really hope it doesn't happen. Moving on to the US, right? So this Pulisic injury, he picked up this knock on, I think it's his left calf during a closed training session. I heard Landon Donovan speaking about this. He made an excellent point on his podcast. Like why is Pulisic not wearing like a red quarterback jersey, like a non-contact jersey? The fact that he can pick up a knock this bad in a training, a session just before the group stage starts is gross oversight. You have to protect your players, right? I mean, I know he got spiked in the Paraguay game, which added to that. Kicked in the same spot by Caceres. He finished the half, but he said, his muscles seized up and tightened completely during halftime. So, right, that's fine. A game's a game. It's gonna be physical. Accidents happen, but it's beyond me how this happened recklessly in training. And if he can't play, that's really gonna snuffle our attack out. As of who will come in to replace him. The people I can think off the top of my head for like a Pulisic adjacent, right? You could go with any of our attack, like Reyna, Berhalter got run time. Maybe you put Tim Weah and get aggressive, or an Aronson, be what it is. I hope you don't put Roldan out there. That will be a disaster. So you really hope Pulisic can play. Again, they're keeping it very under wraps on how hurt he really is. So it's hard to make a sound judgment here. If it's really that bad and it's really going to get worse if something minor happens to it, I think you might have to sit him for one game, right? That I think you've basically wrapped up third place. If, God forbid, knock on wood, you drop the next two games, I think you should still qualify for the knockouts, where you're definitely going to need him. So if it is as bad as some reporters say, right? And here's the problem. Some reporters are saying it's really bad. Some are saying it's not. Nobody has any clue what's going on. If it's really that bad, you might want to sit him, because you don't want to make it worse and lose him for the whole tournament. And you hope you can get him back for the Turkey game and for the knockouts. If it's manageable, I think he has to play. If he can go out there safely and at full health and play how he was last game, he is going to be so important at come 3:00 tomorrow. So we will see. He's listed as day-to-day right now. He was, doing training sessions, looked fine, apparently. We'll see. Poch told, media today just to relax. So that gives me hope. I wouldn't be surprised if he does play, that he'll start on the bench maybe. And then, if we can handle this game early on, then you give him the full game to rest, right? Who knows? But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if you see Berhalter or Aronson kind of start in his place. Probably Berhalter, if anyone, if I had to guess. But we'll see. Again, really hope he can play here. And then last thing about the game, this is a fortress, right? Lumen Field, I guess it's called Seattle Stadium right now. We are undefeated here, 6-0-0 all time, one in the Emerald City. This stadium is obviously the Seahawks stadium. It is meant to be loud and to echo. This is one of the strongest, cells of USMNT supporters in the country. I think this game is going to be rocking. It's also a federal holiday tomorrow for Juneteenth, so not a lot of people are working. So it's going to be a sold-out crowd regardless. Despite the fact it's at noon, you really need to bring the atmosphere here. Again, last time we played October 25, I think it was like Colorado, maybe. We were down 1-0. That double from Haji Wright, snuffed out their 12-game win streak. Do really good. Again, first ever appearance against each other in the World Cup. We will see. Friday, tomorrow, 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Local time, Pacific, on Fox, Telemundo, right? You guys know the deal. Before we wrap up, I'm sure you guys have heard, I'm absolutely shocked with how some of these games have gone, right? If you read my article, if you haven't, on that Spain, and if you're not following us on Instagram, I made a great graphic about that. I'd suggest you follow both us at Green Line Gazette on Substack and on Instagram. how the Euro 2024 champions have drawn 0-0 to a first-time African nation who was qualified. They are an island, archipelago of 530,000 people, and they held Spain. And this is Spain's real lineup, right? You can say Lamine Yamal didn't come on until 20 minutes left. Doesn't matter. Spain's C team should be able to stomp all over Cabo Verde, and they held them to a 0-0 draw. Absolutely ridiculous. This game was insane to watch. Like you would think, right, that they're gonna score, whatever. They're gonna get their late one. It is what it is. But they held so tight. Vozinha, he is 41. He plays in the second Liga division of Portugal, which is absolutely insane. This dude just had the game of his life. And this is, I can read you through Spain's lineup, right? You have Simon, Llorente, Cupresi, Laporte, Cucurella, Rodri, Pedri, Ruiz, Gavi, Ozzy Arzabal, who is a newer face, I believe, and then Fernan Torres. So that's basically Spain's starting 11 minus Lamine Yamal. And Cabo Verde, again, first time they've ever qualified for the World Cup. They are 530,000 people strong, and they've held the Euro 2024 champions to a 0-0 draw. I can't even fathom. It's like saying that out loud if I said that before the game happened. Absolutely ridiculous. And if you saw my article, you would also know this extends Spain's horrible streak in the World Cup. Since they won in 2010, they have won 3 World Cup games. That's it. They beat, let me see if I can go off the top of my head here. I know they beat Iran 1-0, and I think 2018. Obviously, Costa Rica 7-0 in 2022, and I think it was Australia like 3-0 in 2014. And since that 2010 lifting of the World Cup, those are the only 3 games they've won. They've drawn or lost every other game and either gotten grouped or gotten bounced before the group stage. And it's insane because they won the Euros in 2008. They win the World Cup in 2010. They win the Euros in 2012. And then they win the Euros in 2024. And they've only won 3 World Cup games since the last 16 years. It sounds ridiculous to say that out loud. I don't know how that's possible. Again, read about it in my article. I said, it's because of the atmosphere and I think the expectations that surround this type of matchup. I'll quote it here from my article. I said, I believe, and this is the answer to, how has Cabo Verde drawn and held the 3-time Euro champions in the past since 2008 to 0 goals. And I said, I believe the answer lies in a simple formula. It comes down to a simple contrast and pressure. Heavyweights like Spain operate under a constant media microscope, suffocated by expectation. Conversely, underdogs like Cabo Verde play with the freedom of a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, utterly unbothered by football's traditional hierarchy. I think that sums it up perfectly. I think Spain's just too much in their own head. It's almost like a mental block, right? Like they go to the Euros, they absolutely dominate. You've won it 3 times since 2008. And then they get to the World Cup, and I think they freak out on their heads. They're like, oh my God, like we have literally won 1 game every tournament since lifting the biggest trophy in world football. Like, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? And it came back to bite them again. Probably one of the most insane results I've ever witnessed. It was absolutely nuts. And it's not looking good for Spain. They are in a hard group. I would say one of the harder ones, maybe not before because you had Cabo Verde, but now that you've drawn Cabo Verde 0-0, you now have Saudi Arabia, who beat Argentina in 2022 this Sunday. And then you have Uruguay, who will always put up a good fight regardless of whatever, current form they're in or not. If you're a Spanish fan, it's not looking good. Again, it's easier to make the knockouts because the eight best third place teams can make the knockouts. So it is what it is. I get it. But yeah, I mean, Spain cannot ease up. This is the disaster start for them. Conversely, Portugal draws DR Congo 1-1. Ronaldo, absolute howler. Kind of poetic, honestly. Like Messi drops a hat trick against Algeria. Holland puts 2 in. Mbappe puts 2 in, and everyone thinks Ronaldo's going to do something. And they go and choke a 1-goal lead to the Democratic Republic of the Congo in embarrassing fashion. Again, people had Portugal winning this World Cup. And, rightfully so. Their lineup is absolutely insane. They probably have the best midfield in all of world football, maybe outside of France, but I think it might be better than France, right? It's Jean Neves, Bruno Fernandes, and Vitinha. And then, of course, they're flanked by Bernardo Silva, Ronaldo up top. I don't know why Ronaldo's starting. I mean, whatever. And then you have Pedro Neto, who is a shocking player. He did pick up the assist, though, so, credit to him on that cross to Jean Neves, but, it is Pedro Neto. And then they have Nuno Mendes, Viega, Araujo, Cancelo, and then Costa in goal. This lineup is absolutely stacked, and they drew 1-1 to Wissa in France. And Wan-Bissaka, I suppose. No disrespect to him. But another absolutely shocking result. Portugal, not what you want to do, man. It's going to be hard for them too, and I think in their group. Let me look it up here. I believe they're Group E. Let's see. Or Group K. Excuse me. Let's see. Group K, World Cup 2026. So they have Colombia, Uzbekistan. Portugal's probably fine. Not in as dire of straits as Spain is in their group, but again, another absolutely howling performance. Shout out to Messi. Insane hat trick. Just that first goal was absolutely nuts. I really thought Balogun was going to have a legit shot at the Golden Boot. And then, of course, Mbappe, Holland, and Messi go drop 2, 2, and 3 respectively. Right? Who would have guessed? But it's absolutely beautiful watch. This World Cup has been insane so far. I will be back for in Australia. Hopefully a positive review of the Australia game. Probably sometime later this weekend. Maybe Sunday, Monday, whatever that may be. So stay tuned for that. Remember, Apple, Spotify, Substack, and YouTube. Follow us on Instagram. Thank you for tuning in, and I will see you for, again, knock on wood, the hopeful positive recap of USMNT Australia tomorrow, 3 p.m.